Okay, good evening, people. How are you doing? Welcome to Sports Therapy Association. Let's talk about. We are here. It feels like more than a week since the last episode, but it hasn't been. It's just been a really long week. And straight away, I've gone into depressive mode. I promised myself I wouldn't kind of sound down, but here I am straight away. No, it's been a great week. It's been fantastic. I've been on a cloud. Nice to meet people. Nice to see you here. Welcome. To new members as well. This is it. You've managed to join us live. Fantastic, because we'll be able to talk and discuss and network with each other, which is what it's all about. If you are listening to the recording, then that's fine. Thanks for listening. If you are listening on YouTube, which is going out live at the moment as well, then if you could click on the subscribe button, that would be very kind of you. And then also, before I forget, we're now out as a podcast, Sports Therapy Association podcast. I think I've uploaded about the first 10 or 12 episodes or something. I'm going to do it bit by bit because I want people they're such great episodes, even if I say it so myself. But they're not good because of me, they're good because of the guests. But most of all, they're good because of your interaction. So I really do encourage you all to come and join us live, because you are creating a fantastically diverse and healthy discussion with things which are really important to the soft tissue industry. So thank you very much. Right, we've got people already flocking into the room here. Mark is around. Hey Mark, how you doing? Hope that is just you dressed up in a Spider-Man onesie. That's good. I thought it was my eyes going. Good to see you, mate. Becky, thanks for joining us as always. The regulars are in here getting a front seat. If only all my students were like this, straight to the front of the class with their pads and pens out. Danny Matthews, how you doing? Keep your baby away from the keyboard tonight. Thank you very much. That was I contacted Danny afterwards going, Danny, I noticed you hit an unhappy face at the end of the show. Is there something that you weren't happy about? Or it just turned out his kid had hit the keyboard. But at least I followed it up. There you go. Ed Clark, hi, how you doing, mate? Hope you're well. Thanks for joining us. And Tom is in the house as well. Tom Colwill, man behind all of the beautiful posts that we've got across social media. How you doing, Tom? Thanks for joining us. Right, so before I crack on with tonight's show, then thanks to Andy from last week. Was it really only a week ago? Blimey, it was. Andrew Caldwell was in with a fascinating talk. He's had such a great life. It really is one to look back on YouTube with the experience he's had working in the NHS for 7 years, but also treating some fantastically respected sports people and still doing so. So we discussed the differences when working with athletes, particularly in COVID-19, some of the things to look out for, some of the common similarities, things not to be afraid of. So all in all, it was a fantastic show. And as always, thank you for the feedback. Like I say, everything is on YouTube, youtube.com/C/Sports Therapy Association. I think we're up to nearly 200 followers now, which is fantastic, considering we've only been going for about 20 episodes or so. So keep that happening, people. Just a click of a button makes all the difference. It really does help us appear bigger on Google when people do searches, which is what it's all about, because we just want to reach out to more people and help more people. The podcast, like I say, best thing you can help us out with that is going to Apple Podcast Player on your iPhone. That takes a couple of seconds. Hit a review, 5 if you can. If it's going to be 1 or 2, then don't worry, just gloss over and do something else. But if you haven't got an iPhone, then if you really want to help us, if you're as passionate about the future of sports therapy as Mark Newsey, then you could open up iTunes on your computer, dust it, blow it away, and then find us on there in the podcast and write a review on that. Andrew is a bit more painful when you're on Android. But yeah, that would be appreciated as well. So there we go. Tonight, very, very excited. We've already been having a chat. We nearly just let the show disappear because between me and Jemma and Gary, we were on a right interesting discussion, but then we remembered it's not all about us. So we are going to bring up Jemma Oliver, who some of you might be aware of, because I know some of you are already getting some great help from the physio and therapist support group that Jemma set up a while back on Facebook. And it's a fantastic example of a multidisciplinary support group with not just physios, with other therapists in there as well. And it's been doing some great work for the whole healthcare industry for a long time now. So it's great to have Jemma here to share her experience and talk about what the hell is essential services. It should be, really. I read this back the other day and thought essential health. We're not talking about essential health. We're talking about essential to health. Essential services, which is the guidelines we've been given as to whether you're allowed to do face-to-face or not. And it's a bit grey, as we will soon see. So that's what we're going to do. So without further ado, I will get rid of that and I'll bring up Jemma and Big Gaz. People, all right?
Hello.
Evening.
Hello. How are you? We've done it again, Gary. It looks like we're kind of like escorting Jemma out of the nightclub. She drank far too much, I'm afraid, young lady. Where's your ID? There we go. It's right. How you doing, people? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah,
Nice topic to chew over on a wrong show. Wrong show. Can't believe I did that. Yeah, no, thanks for the invite. So
Chew
really
over?
nice.
No. We don't have any chewing over here.
No. Slip of the tongue.
That's right.
I know it's nice to be involved. Nice to virtually meet you both. I've heard lots about you both and all the work that you do, which is really, really good. And you've both been instrumental in helping the group that I run as well. So thanks for that. No, it's nice to chat.
It's going to be quite northern tonight, isn't it? I can see already. It's definitely, yeah.
North of the wall.
We got subtitles, Matt.
I'm going to say we can add them on YouTube. It's fine. We'll put that in afterwards. Where were you born? I can't remember where you're from, Jemma. Where are you from originally?
I'm from born in Liverpool, but live in Preston now.
Ah, right. Okay, that would explain.
Sunny Preston.
Fantastic. Right. So, we'll jump straight into it. Obviously, we're talking about, everyone in the room knows about this guideline that in order to, you can do face-to-face people as long as you can prove that the service you're providing is essential to health. Could it be any less black and white? It's not really the best guideline, which is surprising coming from our government. But Jemma, you've been dealing with this for a while in your support group. I'm interested, first of all, whether it's something particularly affects sports therapists, because maybe we've got more questionable activities. Physios, is it black and white?
Absolutely not. And I think, you answered it in the first thing. It's never been black and white from the start, has it? And I think, healthcare is ambiguous and we all do our own bit. But actually, when, you come into something like a global pandemic, you see a lot of cracks begin to show, don't they? And not that there's cracks within our profession, but I think it's certainly highlighted maybe some areas of insecurity that we all had across the board. And when it comes down to, clarifying guidelines and looking into it in more detail, I think that's when we all start to look into it in a bit more detail. So certainly not clear from an allied health professional situation at all. I think it's sometimes a bit easier for us in a way because we have protected title. I don't really like that phrase, but we have it and we have guidelines and we have a governing body in essence that does have direct relationship with Public Health England. So I guess it is easier, but it's still never been very, very clear. And you can see by, the enormous response that we have on the group whenever the guidelines change that, people just want to talk about it. People need reassurance. And I think in the whole, that's why things like this and the webinars and the groups are needed right now. It isn't all about just reading the document and thinking, okay, that's how I need to work. I'm going to get on with it. And I think without groups like this, I don't know where we would have been. But physios have struggled because I think at first we went through a phase of, we should be closed. And what is closed? We're going to talk about this, but I think there was a misconception actually that the healthcare industry did close. And I think that's mainly because we didn't know what was happening. Nobody knew what was happening. We weren't closed. There is no reason why you can't treat virtually, especially from a allied health professional point of view and across the board from a sports therapy point of view as well. But if you're not used to that format, then that's obviously where the situation sort of lies. So is it clear? No. Is it grey? Absolutely. I think we get around it because we are deemed as a healthcare profession and we can apply that acute medical or medicine sort of side of it. But there's been some huge debate, and it's still ongoing. I think it's a lot more settled now than it was. I think we're a lot more reassured. I think clinics across the board are in a lot more of a smoother pattern now. I think they've got policies and procedures in place, so they feel a bit more comfortable. But even now on the group, we're getting questions every day still about, is this okay? Can I treat this many people? Can I do these amount of classes? So, there's a huge amount of uncertainty with these guidelines, which are far from black and white.
So I'm interested, if anything, just to make us lot feel a bit better. When I say us lot, it's like non-physios, because we were under the impression that physios have got it easy. You've just been giving the red carpet. Please go to work. Yes, continue. Life is normal for you because you do a far more important job than us. So we're not used to this idea that physios might have been arguing amongst themselves as well. What are some of the things where you've been kind of not clear on what you can do and whether you can open or not open? And aren't you just all allowed to do what you want?
Yeah, I mean, this from the start, and it is a lot better now. I think that people have a lot more clarity. Some of the common themes have been things like, should we even be open in the first place? Should we be even able to? And I think personally, that's where people have made a decision. I know lots of therapists that have decided not to go back to face-to-face. One, because maybe they don't feel that they're able to. 2, because maybe they feel from a health point of view they don't want to, or they're taking extra measures. And actually, maybe they already had a smattering of virtual consults anyway, and they decided to sort of push them into that. So we've seen that theme. We've seen a lot of people, and he won't mind me mentioning, Mike James had a few face-to-face clients. He's certainly not gone back to treating face-to-face. Now, obviously, he has set up a business that's allowed him to do that. And so there's a big field of that. There's also a field in the middle where people were sort of dabbling and they were aware of it, and they've done a bit of both. Or they've maybe said, okay, we're not allowed to treat face-to-face at the moment, so why don't I look into this? And I think that's been really successful. And then some, moving forward, if you transfer to 7 months later, I think some clinics have really spurred them on. I think it's really pushed on the practice, and the therapy and the way of treating patients has changed. They can now offer a virtual service, which, it's not all about whether we can work or not. It's about what the patient wants. Do the patients want to go into clinics? We can talk about this, but we've seen a massive drop off in numbers. Just every time there's a lockdown, everybody freaks out and drops down again. And then it slowly peaks back up again. So I think as professionals, not only physios, but across the board, we forget that actually it's not all about what we want to do as a clinic, but actually you forget that the patients might not want to come into this service. And then you have the other further extreme of it, where people are just not into it. They don't like treating virtually. They don't like the remote service. They maybe have a very hands-on kind of profession, and all of their clients love seeing them and they get the benefit from that hands-on. And I totally get that. I absolutely do. And so when you bring in an essential service, and if people do a lot of maintenance work or a lot of kind of ongoing practice, which isn't maybe having acute triage with it, is that deemed essential? Now, from a physio point of view, I think that's where the grey area is. What is acute? I think I would term it as acute. In my ideal, and this is a personal opinion, I think it would all to be to do with pain. At the moment, in a lockdown phase, I would justify that by people being in acute pain. And my question, if I ran a clinic for people screening, would be, can they manage this virtually? Can I talk to them over the phone? Can I give them some exercises? Can we touch base on a weekly basis with a phone call? It doesn't have to be video, to reassure this patient until we come out of lockdown. Or is this patient going to deteriorate mentally or physically if I don't cut them into for an assessment? Okay, and then you bring all the protocols. So I think we're seeing different phases, and obviously in a sports therapy world, it is more complex, because a lot of you will be naturally, I would say, more face to face. But again, as an evolving profession, and I know you both do lots of sort of virtual work, why not? Why can't we change our ethos slightly into just evolving the way that we think about things in this format? And that's kind of my own opinion, I guess, to start with.
So I'm kind of pleased that physios have been suffering a little bit. I'm really going to put on my soft tissue non-physio hat here just to get people on my side. But has there been any, because obviously with the soft tissue therapist, it's a case of looking over your shoulder because maybe you're not allowed to be open. Maybe you're not going to get insurance if something happens. It's continuously kind of battling with, am I allowed to? I need to make money, but I don't want to do it. And there's been that kind of stress. Is there anything physios, imagine there was somebody who, from a government or something who was actually checking up. Is there any way that they would see a physio doing something where they go, that's not essential, what you're doing, you're in trouble? Or
and this is where we get a lot of anxiety within the group, and I think a lot of people that want a lot of clarity, that is essentially, I think, what it comes down to. And you could bring doctors into this, if and I've spoken to, I think we spoke to Mr. Bell, I can't think, Jonathan Bell, very early on, and he was very vocal. I've worked with him before, and he basically said to me, if the GM, when we were talking about rationalising whether to be open or not, he said to me, if the GMC knocked on my door, I would have to be able to turn around to them and say, right, this is what I wanted to do because this is the guidance I've given. This is my justification. And in his very lovely Jonathan Bell way of putting it, he sort of turned around and said, if you don't like that, you need to turn around and tell me what I should have done differently. And that is essentially, I think, from any profession, you can clinically reason what you're doing if you're sensible and if it's a balance, bearing in mind we're in a global pandemic and it isn't just all about kind of keeping your profession alive, then that is essentially essential health, and I think we have to apply common sense to this. There has to be a balance. I don't think that everybody's done that. I think sometimes that some, not all, have maybe interpreted guidelines to, make sure that they can keep working. Now, I'm not just saying that in healthcare. I think we can see that happening everywhere, that gyms are renaming themselves, what did you say, well-being practices, and there's a health and mental health, space, and there's lots of problems. And I think that from a business point of view, there's always going to be people that try and push boundaries. Now, that's fine from a commercial point of view, but from my point of view, we have to remember we're in the middle of a global pandemic. And when you're finding it tough to make those decisions, if you're having to ask yourself questions and justify it, is that the right thing to do? And it's not that straightforward, but just an idea of an opinion, really. So
we've got a few people in the group now praising you. Matt's in the house saying fantastic work, thank you, Jemma, and Becky's backing him up. Just in case you're not aware of the group, then there you go, I'll put this on the screen. So it's the Physio and Therapist Support Group, and that is on Facebook, and you'll find that. It's interesting, Jemma, and we'll mention it now, that originally it wasn't called that, was it?
No, it wasn't. It's gone through various phases. I think I've said this story many times, but to introduce myself to members, hello, I set the COVID-19 Physio Support Group, I think it was, because a few friends of mine were struggling online and they didn't know what to do. Everyone was talking about different things. And I'm talking about March the 17th, something like that. And my friend Jeff and Nikki, we were all sort of chatting offline saying, what do we do? This is looking serious. And I said, well, let's just put it together in a little group. Let's have a resource where everybody can just post what they find. Now, this was 7 months ago, remember? And that is how it started. So all I did is I set up a group, had a bit of time. Bupa was really quiet, obviously, because nobody knew what was happening. So I said, let me set it up. I set it up. I think I've got a sketch of my initial. It wasn't even very technical. I drew like a little icon, and that was it. And I added all my physio friends and we went from there. And I'm really proud to say that 3.6 thousand people later, I don't have 3,000 friends, so I am really proud of it. But it has grown. It was initially, I think, just because I'm a physio and I have a bit of we all tend to get a bit, what's the word, tribal. So I just sort of thought, well, physios need to know this. And I thought, actually, no, this isn't a physio problem. So I very much wanted to keep therapists in there from the start. And I sat down, asked people, like Jack and Mike, what should we call this? I need to rename it. There was a few things thrown around and it was considered just to keep it a physio group. Now, that's with no disrespect to anybody, but actually just to make it more streamlined and so that we could discuss and make it relevant to everybody. But actually I did, I will sort of say now, I stood firm and said, no, this is not a physio problem. This is a healthcare problem. And as I said to both of you before we started, I come from a sports medicine background. I was a massage therapist before a physio many, many years ago. I did sports science. My world isn't about physio. And as a little side intake, I wasn't so hot on the physio profession 12 months ago. I was in a phase of my life where I was actually moving away from physiotherapy because I didn't like what it represents. Now, I say didn't because the stuff that I'm now involved with Physio Matters and the group and the way that it's all evolving, I'm a little bit more passionate about. But my passion comes from healthcare and multidisciplinary practice and helping patients and not just physio. And I think if we're at fault at all as a profession, we are still too tribal, I think, in that mindset. And I really do feel that. And it is changing. And groups like yours is amazing. But I think we've got a long way to go, which is why I said, no, this needs to have therapy in the title. So
that's great. I'm going to stop baiting you now because I just wanted to build you up like a villain and get on against you. Then now they've realized how wonderful and beautiful you are in terms of, you're a massive player now and breaking down the walls. And that's why people like Matt are saying it's great. You've done loads to actually break down walls and get people talking. And like you say, really, really intelligently. And obviously it's not just a one discipline problem. It's global in so many different ways, obviously. So no, it's been great. And I recommend everybody has a check out and looks at it, and you will find, don't leave here to go there, but you will find that the two work well together and you'll get loads of support from the group. Right, we've got some questions coming in. Gary, how's it at your end? Are you still getting a nightmare from people asking you, what's essential health? Can I do this?
Yeah, every day.
Yeah.
Every minute of every day. And it's a bit like Jemma in Gemma's group. I frequent that regularly, and I see people are screenshotting and posting advice from various acronym titled associations, and sometimes they bear no relevance, and it adds to confusion. And I politely ask my members not to post anything that's not STA focused in the group, simply because I'm trying to avoid the confusion. And I didn't apologize last time when I withheld. I issued a holding statement and said that we will issue guidance when we understand what becomes law. And Jemma mentioned it at the start of a talk about is it easier for a smaller association in an unregulated profession to move more speedily and issue the appropriate advice? And I say yes, it is. It's interesting that the things that come up forward and centre of most of the conversations I have with members, and I speak to several, a dozen, 20, 30 members every day, is why can't we be regulated? And people see regulation as the sort of holy grail of the therapy world, and then I advise them to go and look at some of the physiocentric groups and the and the osteo groups and have a look at the problems they're having. And the physios are experiencing real problems with their insurance invoicing systems at the moment, with a lack of guidance and leadership, I suppose, from their regulatory body, the CSP. So we're all in this together. But what I always say to my members is, and I suppose I've drawn quite a firm line in the sand with the guidance. And it doesn't suit everybody, and I do appreciate that. But as Jemma said, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We've got a legal, moral, and ethical duty to stop the spread of the virus. And people will jump through loopholes, and people will call them bypasses, and people will call them, various descriptors to mean that they can work. And you have to be guided by your own moral compass. You have to make that decision for yourself. We're an unregulated industry. I can only issue guidance based on best practice principles. And in doing so, that is open to interpretation, as is the government guidance. And if it's open to interpretation, it's potentially open to abuse. But I have to respect that people have mortgages, people have financial obligations, and they may have to work. I've made the choice not to go into clinic. I don't think it's safe because I've got an underlying health condition. But yes, I do respect people making their own choices, and we will be issuing guidance. I did issue. I put the link to the tier system and the on the site earlier, and it quickly descended into copy and pasting information from beauty therapy sites. And if we as an industry, we are constantly being asked to get more respect from the wider therapist industry, from the public. If we want greater respect and greater recognition, we've got to be professional, in everything we do and everything we say. And we can't be changing our mind every 2 minutes and saying, well, we're going to relax this because of this, and we're going to relax that, or we're going to make this tougher for you. We consider and we collaborate with, I've got some good friends in the industry, and, we have phone calls until midnight and Zoom meetings at 7 o'clock in the morning. We discuss all of these things. We don't come up with this without really careful consideration. So yes, the questions will still keep coming, but that part of the contract I signed with myself when I set up the STA in sort of late 2013, early 2014, and when I started the Facebook groups, is that you have to deal with it, and I bet Jemma sometimes thinks at 10 past midnight, and there's another question on the group, thinking, oh God.
It's funny because it goes through phases. I find it going, you'll be the same. I'm quite new to this and not quite the pro. I need to take some lessons, Gary. But I think it goes through phases. We have peak, ebbs and troughs. And I think to manage my own mental health, which I've been quite vocal about, I have a huge team around me that was started by some people that I didn't give a choice to be. And I just said, you're right, you're helping me. And now some quite considered. And there's 10 people now, which I could not run that group without. And you're probably both the same. Now, I'm very measured, and it'll come in ebbs and flows. So when there's a big announcement, then obviously, yes, I put a lot of time in and I work at it. But then I am very now mindful and selfish, I think, because I'm not very good at being that, to actually now just letting it run itself. the beauty of the difference of the group that I run is it is an open kind of free speech group, so I don't have to publish detail and policy and procedure. I just email people like you, Gary, and go, Gary, what's the guidance in the group? So I think, it is different. And I certainly don't feel like I'm sort of sat up every night. But the lovely thing about it now is that it is such a wide multidisciplinary voice that you get such a varied scope of what's happening within the industry, and that's what I've loved personally. It's been really nice to actually just see that platform evolve and seeing what's happening, and having people like yourself be able to sort of share that if you wish, and to go from there. I think it's interesting what you said, because you did put that statement out by saying, look, the guidance will go out when it's there. And I loved it, because I think sometimes, and I think that we are at fault, I think maybe from a CSP point of view, is that they just don't communicate well. People don't want all the answers all together all at once. They want to know what's happening, and they want some reassurance, and they want some timescales. And even if you just communicate more and say, look, we appreciate this is hard, this is what we're going to do, and this is the plan. In my experience, that's enough. So what you did and then a couple of the others was perfect, because you communicated with your members. And I think there's a lot of people can learn from that, whether it's a small practice and you're communicating with your clinicians, or whether you're a wider governing body like the CSP and trying to sort of manage it. But it's hugely difficult, and well done to you both, because it's a tough time.
There's some comments in there that started something I think that we should spend some time talking about mental health. And we've already kind of mentioned that it can be abused, like gyms opening up, changing their name to mental health place, and then suddenly they're allowed to open and stuff. But I mean, we've in the group we've been talking about, with the help of Massage Collective, Matt Scarsburg and Anne-Marie, and we've been talking about how the best evidence we've got for example, massage is benefit in fighting anxiety and depression. It has positive effects, and it's good quality evidence. But it's being used a little bit like I need to be doing this face-to-face still, because otherwise the person is going to start suffering from mental health problems. But I think we were talking a bit off air about how if you have got people who are suffering from mental health problems, they need that contact. This is kind of an open door, isn't it, for virtual consultation? And what some people are missing the point. Maybe they've got a fear and they can't get into it. But I know we all have. But what would you say because it's the therapist who needs the help in turning it around, if they have got a client who needs that support, what are some kind of like ways to help a therapist gain the confidence to provide a virtual online service for somebody who needs that companionship, rather than still trying to find a ways to seeing them face to face?
Yeah, I think it's tricky. I think, like I just said, there's 3 different schools of thought on this. Some people feel really confident with it, and some people not so much. And I totally understand that. I think what you've got to remember is that remote doesn't mean video. And I think sometimes we forget that. I think it's such an important fact that you've said. And I know Matt's doing some research, and I've just read one of his comments now, and there is research. And that for me is why I'm, as a physio, when I do work face to face, I'm very hands. I love my rehab, and I love progressive late stage rehab, but I do value touch and sensitivity, and it has a huge impact, from a neuroscience point of view, as well as everything else. And I don't think we can forget that. But at the same time, in a lockdown period, as we've said, we're in a global pandemic. If you can't work for whatever reason, or if there's lots of boundaries being put in your way, why not think about doing something else? And having contact doesn't mean you have to set up a big video system with all the, lights and cameras and everything. It means that you can pick up the phone to your client. It means that you can do a phone call service. You can say, look, I appreciate this isn't ideal. Thank you. I know you love the service, but are you okay? What else can we do? Do you like this? And more often than not, as many people will realize, as well as the hands, it's the contact, it's the talking, and it's the listening, and it's the, the patients want you to understand what they're going through, and that is value, and that adds that is what we're doing. That's how people get better. So I think one thing would be to say it doesn't have to be all video. If you did want to look into it and you have a good relationship with your clients, then, you do FaceTime or WhatsApp or anything like that. Okay, there's probably arguments here to say maybe that's not legal, and maybe you need to be careful from a GDPR point of view. But if it's very easy to get consent from your patients to do that, in that sort of environment. Or again, set up a free, all of Zoom is free. There's loads of different different sort of ways to do that. And I think it's just about being a bit more open, being a bit more realistic about whether this is the future and whether you do need to sort of look at it. Nobody's saying at the moment that you're never going to be able to work from a hands-on point of view. But if we have a month where you're locked down, is there other ways that you can do by maintaining that contact from a mental health point of view, maintaining your business, keeping your patients happy? And I would say 9 times out of 10, they're going to be okay with that.
Have you come across any worthwhile CPD or people, mentors who can help with that sort of thing?
So we have Evie's group, obviously the online physio group, which she's got. I mean,
something about Evie, yep.
Another fantastic individual that I've met, over COVID. It's called, a huge advocate for virtual and remote consultations. She would be my first port of call. 1, because she's very vocal. 2, because I think it's very easy to watch. I think there's lots of CPD now that can get a bit techie. Hers is very simple, very straightforward, very human. And I think that would be lovely. And I think just reach out and talk to other people. There's so many groups, there's mine, but all of you have, your own open forums or your closed forums for your members. Talk to people, get your posts out there and say, look, I'm a bit apprehensive about this. What do I do? What have other people do? There's bound to be at least 4 or 5 people who've been in the same situation that say, right, yeah, I was a bit worried, but now I've done this and it's absolutely fine. Or talk to your patients, and see. Or worst case scenario, if it's not going to work for you, at least set yourself some time frames or see what else you can do. But yeah, I mean, I would say the communication and recommendations from others would be my go-to point there, really.
Also, as well, Matt, if you remember, we had Nicola Elwood.
That's true. Yeah.
Several weeks ago, and if we go back to the podcast or the YouTube version of that and have a look, she linked quite a lot of online resources for people who are suffering with mental health problems. And I agree with Jemma that this is 4 weeks. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and can we really justify, if somebody's suffering with mental health issues, which they perceive to be from not getting a massage, I would question what else they've got going on in their life. I would say I would be ringing up, having a chat. And Matt makes an interesting point about tricky to try and weave mental health considerations into remote consultation, sticking in our scope of practice. But we're just ringing up to have a chat. And I've made no secret, I've suffered from mental health problems for a number of years, and the best therapy that I get is talking to somebody. I'm very lucky that I've got Claire, who I can ring up and and rant to, and she puts things into perspective for me. The stress that I've undergone through this pandemic because of my role in the industry, trying to issue advice. So I need an outlet, and it's interesting that if you were working in the NHS as a physiotherapist or other professional, you would have supervision, on a regular basis. You would talk to somebody who's superior, and you would get off your chest at, all of these things that are worrying us. And perhaps that's something that we need to do in this industry is have a network of people who we can talk to, within our membership and say, look, I'm having a real problem at the moment with my own mental health because I can't work, and some of the conversations I've had over the past weeks are, should I be working? Shouldn't I be working? I feel like I really could make a difference to people who are struggling with their day-to-day activities, outside of normal struggles, but people who've got acute pain and really struggling. They but at the same time they're wrestling with their own internal moral compass to say, I don't think it's that. That we've got a global pandemic. The is we need to morally and ethically and legally stop the spread of the virus. So that's the battle people having internalizing is, should I be working to help other people or should I be helping myself?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Becky's made a nice point in the comments. I'm sure there's loads. This is where, like you say, communicating with each other, but she's just had an example of where one of her clients was dead against a video consultation, but agreed to send videos of him doing his exercises to check the technique. So it wasn't a live thing. They didn't feel that kind of observed barrier. And that's a great entry point. Once they send a few videos and they know you're watching the video, then yeah, great idea, Becky. It's really good. I like that. Sarah Jones says, I've been emailing a lot of my clients, just touching base with them and making sure they're okay. I've done that more than video consults this time around. Yeah, it's so true. It doesn't have to be a video. It could be a phone call. which you can record as well these days. And you can use, I can't remember what the number is now, but you can block your number if you don't want them to know your personal number. There's loads of ways around it. Yeah, I'm not sure we got a resource yet. I'm sure we will have after this, but I'm sure if anybody is an STA member and they need some advice, then send an email to myself or Gary, voicing your concerns, and we'll put you in contact with somebody who can help and have a little Zoom call, run you through some ideas, talk it over. Because, yeah, like we've all basically said, you can still make a very good living using the same skills which you use, that empathy which you put through your hands, which gives you the desire to rub someone's body for an hour 8 times a day anyway, which a lot of people would never dream of wanting to do. You do that because you're altruistic, because you love the idea of helping somebody. So you've already got the jewel inside. You just need to wrap that jewel in another thing, which is going to be using your mouth more and using your ears more. And so you've got the skills. It's just transferring it a little bit during this weird period.
Adaptability as well, isn't it? I think we all, and I think it's difficult. We've had a couple of heated chats in the past couple of weeks, and I think one of them was just bound from the fact that everyone is so stressed. I think there's a lot of stress. Everyone's trying to do the right thing. Everyone's trying to read the thousands of levels of guidelines for all the different things. They've got their own families, they've got their own stuff going on, and at the same time they're trying to keep up with the group, and people are trying to tell them to do video remote things, and it's just not that easy. And I think, I certainly get that, and I know we all get that as well. But I think it's about maybe just taking a step back, looking after yourself, and not only looking at what the patient's going through, but what are you going through? If you're putting up so many barriers to doing these things, do you need to take a break? Do you need to just step back? That's easier said than done sometimes in a world where we're all self-employed, or a lot of people are. But I think sometimes if you're finding this very frustrating, take a day, take a bit of a time out just to see why there's a barrier there. Do you just need a bit of a break yourself? It's so important. As like Gary said, I've suffered as well. Still am struggling. I'm having a really low week. Things like this help me. The networking I've made through COVID has really helped me, inadvertently with my own mental health. But I think it's so easy to get wrapped up in what we should do and what we shouldn't do and what's right and wrong. We forget actually that you do this every day anyway as a clinical professional. It is no different. And I think just to look after yourselves a bit more is really important at the moment.
Definitely. You were going to say something, Gary, weren't you?
Yeah, I was going to say, just slightly off topic now, but I was going to say that a few weeks ago we had a sort of an online discussion about the treatment process. Your 45-minute session, your hour session, and we tried to come up with. We were talking about passive modalities and interventions, and we were trying to get people to understand that the greatest percentage of you as a therapist of improving that client's well-being is not the passive modality, it's you as the therapist. So you as the therapist are still the same person, whether you're on the end of a phone or whether it's by FaceTime. The only thing that we haven't got at our disposal at the moment is those passive interventions. So, I would say challenge yourself to get that 75% up to 85% or 90% and be less reliant on those passive modalities, which people want, and we have to manage the expectation of the client coming in if they come in for a massage or, for some needling or some cupping or whatever your modality of choice is. Let's manage their expectations. Let's explain to them what the modality does, but explain to them that it's the education, it's the way we talk to them, it's our empathy as a therapist. It's what makes us a therapist. It's everything we've done in our life to this point makes us the therapist that we are, and we should be proud of that, and we should exploit that and be able to talk to people over the phone or Zoom or FaceTime or whatever you want to use. So it's not the industry shutting down, it's that we probably have to adapt. We have to overcome some of these barriers, and it would be interesting to see if you would like me to try and arrange for somebody to come on and discuss these mental health issues in a future episode of this, because I have got some contacts who I can speak to. But I'm just going to looking through the comments. Anna Maria says, we are the intervention ourselves. And I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah, it's very true. Right, questions, people. We got some. Jemma is here and has a wealth of experience. You can see she's one of the good guys as well. She's not one of those dodgy physios who slags us off behind our back. She's actually on the right page. So feel free to ask. Can I just say,
it does look like, I feel like I'm on This Morning. When they put the This Morning clips on where it comes and you have a little poll. I think it's just the graphics. I feel like I I should be talking to Phil and Holly. You can decide who's Phil and who's Holly, Matt. So
let's see if I'm not sure if I can actually get you. Is that better? Does that feel a little bit less?
No, it's fine. It's just a look. I like it. No, I like it.
That's nice. There you go.
In case you forget who you are.
There you
Much
go.
better than that chewing it over show. It's much more professional.
Oh yeah. It's weird, that shoe show. No, it's great. I listened back to Jack's episode. I think it's episode 1. He was one of the first guests we had, and it was just brilliant. He really opened up about his past and everything. And it was really, really cool. And all done in a northern accent, so it was kind of accessible, and you believed it. It was good. It was good. Carol Brown, let's have a look. Let's take some questions. So Carol Brown says, I advised a client this week to go out for a walk in the countryside or the beach just to clear away negative thoughts and change mindset. The days that are hard, that's the days to force yourself and go out for a walk. Yeah. So
I love that. And I love that. And
nice,
that is the way that therapy should be going. You know, therapy isn't just about the rehab and the hands and everything. Very important. And we all love that. It has to be more than that. It has to be more than that. I speak to Andy Hogsgood quite a lot. He's doing some mentoring with me at the moment, which is amazing. And he takes a client out for coffee, you know, so if he has a difficult patient, or if he's struggling, or if the patient's struggling, they just go for a walk in the park. And in London, I had, you know, a couple of other therapists that I work with that just used to go for a coffee down the road. You know, and I've done that before. Maybe a bit easier in London when there's a coffee every third street, but that is still therapy. Sometimes you need to get them out of their environment. So I love that. I love that, Carol.
It's very nice. And it's like this, that's a classic example, I think, of the frame of mind and the empathy that a therapist has. Not everyone would think of that. Not everybody would be able to give that sort of advice. And it's tricky because the boundaries, like Max says, we have to be careful. We're not counselors. We've got to make sure that we're in a good referral network, and we've got to be safeguarders. We've got to look out for kind of different type of red flags now. Red flags where we need to actually put that person into somebody, you know, who fits into their scope of practice. But it's still, they are blurring now in terms of they are going to have to adjust very much the boundaries between therapist, which is what we call ourselves, and actual therapist, because it's definitely blurring.
Yeah, it's important.
What else we got here? Sue is bigging up Jemma. We'll put that on the screen as well, because I know Gemma's self-confidence is very low these days. There we go. Thank you, Jemma, for being so supportive of our industry. There you go. Very holistic approach to everything. I love the way that holistics come back now. We can actually use it without suggesting we're going to light some joss sticks and hug a tree.
In university, people used to make fun of me of using the word holistic. And
what's a dirty word?
Now, 13 years ago. And no word of a lie. And, you know, our physios that I used to use the word holistic, it was all about me. Again, I come from a sports massage background. I did sports science before physiotherapy. It was all about the athlete and the patient. And I used to say this stuff in class all the time. And I used to, you know, they brought me, on our end of year like party, they bought me like yellow gloves, because I used to say that everything was like holistic and, and now 13 years later, you know, and at the time I was very self-conscious and I thought, oh, maybe I'm being a bit too, tree huggy here. But, you know, in the clinical side of me, and I went through a big phase in my career. I was like, oh, I need to learn how to do these manips, and I need to, go on the MACP course, and I need to learn to do the needling. And some of it I did, some of it I thought, well, I don't want to do that. And now, again, it comes with age and being wise and realizing that that's not the be all and end all. I now realize that my skill set isn't there. There's some brilliant people that do all of that stuff, and that's fantastic. But, in sport now, if I see somebody and they want a nip, I go, well, you need to go and see Stuart over there because I don't do that. And I think that comes with confidence, and that's profession wide as well. Across the modalities, don't feel like you need to do all these things. Think about what you want to do. So I love the word holistic. Amazing word.
Jemma, it's interesting. Do you ever explain why you don't do the manips? If you can refer, I do. I educate people and say,
and I don't believe it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I get well, and again, this I'm probably sharing too much. If somebody comes in when I worked clinically a lot more, and if they'd asked for something, I purposely wouldn't give it them deliberately, because I think sometimes it's the perception and understanding the education. And in sport as well, I work in England athletics, and we work with a younger sort of audience, so under 17 normal, and they need to know, so they see a lot of athletes, of a higher, maybe British athletics athletes competing at the same competitions, and they'll come to me and they'll say, oh, well, can I just have a rub? but I will make them stand there and tell me what the problem is and give me the justification of why that's going to help them. Now, if they can do that, if they come to me and say, well, I've got 100-meter final, I've done 1 heat already, I've got 2 more, I'm feeling a bit achy, and I think it'll help, fine. If they come to me and say, oh, I want to rub because they want to lie down on the couch for 2 minutes, then that's a no-go. And I think that goes for everything. But yeah, absolutely explain it. Comes with confidence, and I think it comes with practice and experience. And so, sorry, my dog is...
It's fine. We love it. It's live. Matt Scarswick's got a nice analogy, as always. He's always got a nice... I've got to read this properly because it goes over a line. My favourite analogy... Chicky, I believe, does that. So Matt Scarswick said his favourite analogy from his own struggles with anxiety and depression is taken from the seat back... in an aircraft. Fit your own oxygen mask first. You can't help others if you're not helping yourself. It's a good one, Matt. It's a really good one. Might take that from you. It's a good one. Cool.
While we're on aircraft, then, Matt.
Oh yeah.
I like to think of. I like to measure people's versus risk. If I was in an aeroplane and I had a parachute, I wouldn't jump out of the aeroplane until I knew that parachute was appropriately packed and safe. It was strapped to my back. But there are some people who would just throw the parachute out and jump out after it, and that demonstrates how we measure our aversity to risk. And as therapists, if we are risk averse, we won't go back into clinic because that's our own moral compass directing us to stay safe and protect ourselves, our community, and our loved ones. But some people, who would jump out, after the parachute, they're the people who are likely to go back into clinic on a whim, if you like. And I think it's important that on these chats we do take leaf out the Prime Minister and Jonathan Van Tam's book and try and get some colourful analogies in here. I was listening to the bugle of the cavalry over the hill and things like that. So let's have some interesting analogies from the floor.
It's useful to remember as well that we will get over this, people. It's like we got over Black Death. We got over smallpox. Smallpox wiped out 95% of populations.
Matt, I've got to stop you there. There's a programme on BBC 4 about what we don't know about the Black Death. Apparently we've got it all wrong.
Oh, really? We didn't actually wipe it out.
I love all these programmes are just coming out now. Contagion is, I think, the most watched film, isn't it, from like the 90s?
Yeah.
But we will get over it. It's just going to take a while because of human nature, and we do what we can. But I think on a positive note, we're all going to come out stronger. We're going to come out better therapists. People who are struggling, because people like to think that before it was just like 35 clients a week back to back, I had no financial problems at all, and I was driving a Rolls Royce. Well, then you're not a sports therapist, you're a chiropractor. Sports therapists were never making that sort of money anyway. It was always kind of a passion. You do it because of the love rather than the money. So it wasn't that rosy before. But I think when we do come out and everybody's got these skills of being able to see clients online without having to travel and being able to put them back to back and see great results and get a good name for yourself, and it's definitely going to add longevity, I think, to the healthcare system. It needed the change anyway. It was all just boiling up and getting terrible. Anyway,
slowly. And I think it's forced us, not privately and in the NHS, into a world where maybe people weren't ready for. I cannot see GPs ever going back to this way that they were working before. Why would they ever now go back to booking face-to-face appointments when they can just call people up? Now, I'm not saying every GP model is perfect, far from it. I'm very lucky where I am. They've got a great model. But that is never going to change. And you're seeing that rolled out through the NHS and consultation. Now, I think that's a good thing. If we can just get a little bit more contact, more frequency, at least from an initial contact point of view, that has to speed things up. And I think that filters then through to private practice as well in all forms. And I think you're right. I think it was changing. I'm with you, Matt. I think it's awful to say it's for the better. I don't mean it like that. I think I just mean from a professional point of view and a healthcare point of view, I think we've been forced into a change which is massively going to platform us forward. And I think the decision from a therapist is that whether you kind of go with that and you allow yourself to adapt, or whether you're going to put up some barriers and be a bit stuck. And I unfortunately don't think, I think people like that are going to struggle a little bit.
It's interesting how many members I'm talking to really like PPE now. I'm not saying full chemical warfare suit that we have to wear at the moment, but gloves and masks. People are saying, well, during normal winter season, I'm going to wear gloves and masks because, it's like Jemma was saying, GPs will not go back to spending inordinate amount of times in a small room with ill people. You can do that. You can diagnose people appropriately over the phone if they've got flu symptoms. They don't have to come into your clinic and risk spreading it. So I think things will change. There's an interesting question here from Lisa Reynolds, Matt. Why do you guys not like manipulations? Would you like to start, Jemma?
I was going to gloss over that one. I just saw that on the corner of my eye and thought, right, we'll just miss that one out now.
I think it's funny. I don't think it was ever that I didn't like them. I think it was what you're trying to decide when you first start out as a physio or a therapist, what should I do, what courses, but I was never very good at it. I was never very good at all the knowing where all the specific things were. Still not very good now. And so I was like, oh, do I need to do this? I don't really want to. And also, the more I read about it, I thought, can I not just give that a bit of a rub? Does it not have the same effect? Was basically my thought process there. So, and I was much more soft tissue at that point. And although you would class that as a manual therapy, from my point of view, manipulation wise, if we're going to go a bit clinical, you can manip a joint, but what's going to make it stay there? It's going to last for, I don't know, however long. I don't know the research, but in my view, and this is what I used to say to patients, that may make you feel better. But actually, I was more interested about the more long-term prospect of why it was needed a manip in the first place. And that's just where my interest was. So that's your answer to that. But yeah, I know people that can just do that now. I'll just refer them to the good people that do it.
Yeah, from my perspective, with manipulations high velocity, what I found is that you're doing some mobilizations and you're moving towards a manipulation. There is a part of the recipient of that manipulation that's tensing up in expectation. So it gets progressively harder to carry out the manipulation. And as Jemma said, I could get similar or better results with less invasive treatments. Sometimes just talking to people, and showing them how to move a little bit more freely. So that's why I personally don't like
physios in the past as well, specifically, and I say physio just because it's my background. We get a reputation for being physiotherapists, and patients expect pain, and patients, it comes from an old-fashioned, what would we call bone crackers or bone breakers or something back in the day.
Bone setters, weren't it?
Bone setters, and you get a perception that you need to cause a certain amount of pain, or the patient's not getting the money's worth. And there's maybe people that's still the same. And I think at one point I sort of really, I'm a good sports massage therapist. I worked in bobsleigh for, 13 months, but isn't always about the pain. It isn't always about the reaction. And again, that comes with experience. It's just my own view. But like you said, Gary, there's other ways you can achieve that by being softer or doing different skills or talking to someone or creating a different environment. If you wonder what I'm doing, I'm sorry, my dog is annoying it.
I was trying to work out how big the dog was.
I've got a FOMO. He's got FOMO, this dog.
Just give Lisa a few moments just to write down what you've just said, because she's doing an assignment now about the efficiency of mobilization. So just tell us when you're ready, Lisa, and we'll set Jemma off again for you. I've just remembered Chris Kitson stimulated my memory there. There was if you're still thinking about regulation and what the pros and cons of regulation in our industry and that, then episode 22 was all about that. And Chris Kitson, who's a great therapist of endurance therapy performance, is no osteopath now. He was an osteopath, belonged to fantastic kind of regulatory association, which kind of looked after all its members. And Chris took the decision that this isn't working and not actually helping me being part of this organization. And he left being an allied health professional. So there's some interesting comments about that for the people who think regulation is going to be the answer to everything. So check that out on 22. And the one with, I can't forget, who is the mental health awareness lady? Nicola. Yeah, that was back in number... I had it here, 14. So episode 14. We've got quite a little catalogue now, people. So more or less for every topic which comes up, if you do have somebody who's struggling with a topic and you want to guide them towards one of the videos, bring it on. Tell them, go and check out episode 14. Then we'll talk again. It's a nice little library going on. Right, we're getting to 8:55. Yes.
If anybody wants any topics covered, email us. We'll facilitate whatever we can.
Yeah, without a doubt. We said that from the beginning. And now and again, things do come up. But if you don't say anything, we'll just kind of keep bringing on superstars like Jemma, because there's there's still more people out there we can bring your way. Right.
Confident blagging, that's all it is, Matt. Confident blagging has got me very much today.
No, it's lovely getting the chance to, I mean, I've watched you before. I think working with Jack a few times and on different Zoom, back in when the first Zoom calls started coming out. I remember watching you then from the shadows for about an hour. And does that sound a bit weird and kind of like
No.
but it was great. No, it's passionate. My wife's from Wigan, so I stand up to attention anyway when I hear a northern accent straight away. But it was great. No, I'm really proud to know you and everything you've done so far, following the support, which has been really good.
Thanks for the invite.
Really good. No problem
It's
at all.
lovely to be involved, and I want to push on, and the group is doing really well. It's a free space. We have a free space. We've worked quite hard to make it more often than not a non-advertising kind of business space, and it will remain that. It will never be for sale. It's a free space, and it's working, and it's popular because people can say whatever they want within reason. And I think that's important, especially as we evolve, because as much as we want to rid this COVID label, I think that's going to be a while. And as the therapy profession evolves, I think it's important we're all quite open and not individualized and not scared to kind of just say, oh, I don't understand this, what's going on. And there's people within our network now, between the three of us, that we can definitely put anybody in touch with, I think, because we're all on the same page. So
tell us a little bit about this project. What's going on there? Is this something you're getting your teeth into now, or has it been going on for a while?
Talking about
there you go, physio support.
Oh yeah, so that's my new thing. So on the Facebook group, I realized that I was getting a lot of sort of private messages of people asking me for support and one-to-one mentoring. So I decided to sort of set something up again virtually. I didn't want to work remotely. I didn't want to work face-to-face. I work for Bupa and I have one day free. So it's for people that want a little bit of mentoring, whether that's one-to-one or in a clinic environment. I'm working with a couple of clinics where basically I offer hours for their clinic, and just give them contact. They can email me, they can text me. We talk about anything. We do some clinical stuff. So if people say I've got a bit of a case study and maybe they don't want to bother, their bosses, or maybe you work self-employed or you're not around that many people, it's a nice kind of contact point. And it's everything that we've been talking about. It's just communicating, it's having somebody there to talk to. And I think there's an opportunity there, and I love it. And it's in its early stages. I'm doing some work with Andy Hogsgood and his work, which has been great. And Elevate My Clinic have been amazing in helping support me do that. But I think it's needed, and it doesn't have to be a big business. I'm not a big business. I'm a physio. It's not about that. It's about actually providing a service for somebody to actually go, I think I need some support. I've got a good product, but I'm lacking confidence, or I need some help, or I need some reassurance, and I don't really know what to do. So yeah, have a look at my website. Early stages, but we are working.
So it's obviously in the early stages because eventually it's going to be physio and therapist support, isn't it? So
obviously.
it's part of a really nice movement. It is nice in these times that we're seeing more mentorship programs, because it means people are reaching out for help, which has got to be a healthy thing. So it is part of a few things which are sprouting up now, and in the STA as well, we've got mentors happening, and people are being added to that. With people like Keith Burnett and Tom as well. And so it's all going on. It's nice. It's really healthy to see.
I think I wanted it to be simple as well. I think one of the things, especially from a physio point of view, is I think we can make it too complicated, and it doesn't need to be. My tagline is simple, open and honest, and it's very much how I want to practice. I mentioned the manipulations, but you don't need to do that. It can be very simple. We've all got the skills to be able to help people. I think it's just some like times drawing it out. And I think if I'd had somebody years ago to just go, it doesn't need to be complicated, and I did in some ways, it would have really helped me. So yeah, hopefully people find it useful and watch this space. We've got some exciting things coming up, so that's fun.
Well, Sue did. Sue says, thank you, Jemma, for your great chat tonight. And she's kind enough to say, thanks, Matt and Gary, too. You both do an amazing job for our association. So there you go.
Always.
All good. Well, thanks so much, Jemma. Thanks for coming along. Just a reminder that people like yourself just come along to help. It's purely altruistic. There's nothing else to gain from it. So we do appreciate you giving up an hour of your time, especially if you've got little yapper there.
Final, by the way, that I'm now going to watch on +1. It was the Bake Off final at 8 o'clock, just saying.
Oh, was it? Oh, wow. That's why my wife said, no, it's fine. You go ahead. I'll be fine.
Yeah, there you go.
Can I just ask
you might need to go and do something for another half an hour because it's on till 9:30. So there you go.
Oh, wow.
Gemma, can I ask you a question before you go then, please?
Yes.
If you were a therapist, you know, because you come from a massage background, if you were a therapist now, a massage therapist entering the industry now, given your experience and your in hindsight, what one piece of advice would you give them?
I should just keep it simple, like I just said. I think sometimes when you qualify from any profession, you sort of look at all these courses that you need to do and you look at all this stuff. I think keep it simple and remember the skills that you have got and what you want to do. Don't try and be sort of get your head turned by what everybody else is doing. Focus on what you want to be and the sort of person that and the therapist that you want to be. And that is essentially why you get into it in the first place. And people respond to people. People, you know, react to people. And I think that's hugely important. I think we can complicate things so much. Just keep it simple and be true to yourself. I think that's certainly what I do, trying to anyway.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think I was somewhat brainwashed by my initial training. And if I could offer, you know, a young therapist or a new therapist any advice, it was learn to listen. You know, spend a lot more time listening to your client because, you know, historically a consultation would be over in 5 or 10 minutes, and you'd administer your sports or remedial massage, whatever modality you were using, without any really understanding what they were there for. And I think by listening intuitively to them, you get more of an understanding of them as a person. So I would say it's be a better listener, and that helps with all of the mental health things as well. It might be out of our remit, but sometimes when somebody's stressed, you know, somebody's feeling anxious, they just want to be able to talk to somebody. So somebody being at the end of the phone in a supporting or mentoring way, or just to listen, would be advantageous.
Agreed.
Here, definitely. 2 ears, 1 mouth.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, guys. Well, thank you so much. Jemma, it's been an absolute pleasure.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And yeah, like I say, hopefully you'll see some of the STA appearing in your group to both give and receive support, I'm sure. So thank you so much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you down to the lobby. I'm just going to say goodbye to people in here for 2 minutes, then I'll come down to you. You can chat with Gary in the lobby. He's got nothing else to do. He's only got 15 missed calls to answer. So thanks a lot, Jemma. I really appreciate it. And we'll
No problem.
See you again soon. All right. Gary, I'll put you down there as well to make sure she doesn't steal anything. There we go. Done. All right, people. Thanks so much. That was great. Really good chat. I'm not sure she can hear you, Jen. No, sorry, Gary. I don't think she can hear you. Sorry. That didn't work, did it? Thanks, people. We will be back next week. As Gary has said, we have got some great people lined up for you as well. Do please, just to remind you, it is kind of like, I love it, but it's kind of same 45, maybe 50 people coming each week, which is beautiful. But I want you to try and grab in some people who wouldn't normally come here. Okay, so you're like little mentors now as well. It's really nice to see you. I don't want you for a second to think that I don't want you to come, but I want to give you the responsibility now to try and reach out to somebody and say, come along, just get some time off on a Thursday night or Tuesday night and come and sit in. You know, if you don't like it, go after 20 minutes because that's what it's all about. And otherwise I'm always paranoid about this echo chamber thing with us just talking, agreeing with each other. So for next week, people, I'm giving you some homework. What I'd like you to do is bring along somebody who hasn't been here before, which means there should be about 78 people in here next week, hopefully. If you could write I accept in the comments, and that'd be great. Then I can pick you up on it next week. The other thing also, just about a month to go before Runners Collective starts up, which is going to be my new project, talking about trying to get information to people. I'm going to be dealing just with runners, so I'm not going to do any more Run Chat Live episodes with researchers and Benno Niggs and Bartholds and Schooliers and Layman's, and I'm just going to concentrate on little chats with runners, and I want to try and produce something which is going to be easier for runners to understand. So if you do have any runners you work with and you want them to have somewhere to go which will back up what I know the people in this room are going to be saying to them anyway, then do try and get them involved in Runners Collective. You're welcome to come in as well, but as a therapist to stay in the group and not be culled, then you need to bring along 3 runners every month. And that's so that the group does grow with runners. I'm determined to kind of reach 1,000 before I start doing the weekly chats. And therapists who do bring along runners and start becoming part of it, then you'll become part of the Runners Collective, which I've got great plans as well. And we'll start bringing you guys into it. So there we go. So it's on Facebook. It's on about 650 at the moment, I think. And I'd like to get to 1,000, and then things will start moving. Right, that's it from me. Thank you again for coming. Let's just get rid of that. We'll see you same time next week on the Sports Therapy Association. Let's talk about. Do go and like us as a podcast as well. Please help us climb. Help us reach more people. All right, guys. Thanks very much. See you soon. Bye-bye.